Welcome everybody, dear listeners and patrons of the art. Intonation Foundation is thrilled to host Shravan. It's a unique, active listening session today with the help of our accomplished artists and audience participation. My name is Revati Narayanan. I will be your MC today. I'm a student of Srimati Shubhangi Sakalkar and I'm also a board member with the Intonation Foundation. Well, what is the art of listening? One might ask, right? Music itself is an art. Does it need another art form simply to listen to it? According to Simon Sinek, listening is more than the act of hearing. But he talks about it in the context of somebody speaking something. He says it's creating an environment in which the other person feels heard. Recently, I attended a concert by jazz musician Vijay Iyer in San Francisco. He played a really long piece. He played about a piece that lasted about 35 to 40 minutes long. And then he picked up the mic and he looked at the audience and he said, "Thank you. I could hear you all listening." And he paused and then said, "And it sounded good." So what does it mean when it is a musician that uses not words but their music to speak? What happens when we as listeners tune into the musician's wavelength and go along with them on their journey? You clearly see their twists and their turns, you anticipate their moves, you wait for the note to land, you heave sighs of delight when the phrases land gracefully. That's what we're about to witness today as we probe into the carefully chosen pieces of music. And to help us with that, we have three eminent musicians gathered today to guide us on this journey and offer their perspectives. They have spent decades honing their craft. We have to be thankful just for that, just for the dedication and the time that they put into it and for sharing it with us, especially in this fast-paced age that we live in of instant gratification. Today, they'll be sharing the hows and the whys of listening. They each have very different views on why listening is important. Sometimes their views merge, sometimes they diverge. Without stealing their thunder too much, I'll give you just a glimpse of what they look for when listening when I introduce them. First off, we have Srimati Shubhangi Sakalkar. She started learning Hindustani vocals at the age of 14 in Mumbai, India. After training with Kunda Vaishampayan, Dr. Prabha Atre and Dr. Padma Talwalkar, Shubhangi went on to receive her master's degree in music from Mumbai's SNDT University, where she ranked first in her class. She packs so many subtleties and nuances into her music that you simply experience the music differently. For those of you who've listened to her, you might relate to this. You just know the phrase is special, but you have no idea how she achieved it and why such a simple phrase sounds so heavenly. As a student, I can attest to how impossible it is to reproduce what she says. For her, listening deeply is all about making a musical connection to the music and the artist. Music for her is a spiritual merging of oneself with the music, and in the end, only the music remains, the musician disappears. As she has said to me many a time, "Revati, when you sing, it can be about you or it can be about the music. It cannot be both." Profound words to live by. Next, we have Shri Prasad Joglekar. Dr. Prasad Joglekar started learning sitar from Mr. and Mrs. Phadke, Pune, starting at the age of 8. Later, he became the disciple of legendary Ustad Abdul Halim Jafar Khan. He also learned raga music extensively from Maihar Gharana maestro Pandit Partha Chatterjee and has been mentored by Ustad Shahid Parvez for the nuances of Gaiki on sitar. He holds a PhD in computer engineering, and you will see why that is relevant. His Marwa at Intonation Foundation's first Ustad Amir Khan Music Festival must be a mainstay with many of you here who attended the festival. We heard his intellectual and spiritual depth that day. He brings his keen computer engineering background to bear on why listening is important. He says, when you look at artificial intelligence, and you consider your brain to be the neural network. It is only as good as the training data you give it. The higher the quality of data and the quantity of training data that you give it, which means the music that we listen to, the better the model that this neural network creates. And we are able to listen and interpret music that much better and use it to become better musicians. So you see how he blends his musical expertise with his computer engineering expertise to put these things in terms that we understand in today's age. Thank you, Prasad.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Sri Nachiketa Yakundi. Hailing from Dharwad, Nachiketa Yakundi was initiated into Hindustani vocal music by his parents. His formal study began in Madras under Sri B.N. Simha and later under Sri B. Hanumantachar. His rigorous and extended pedagogy came under the virtuoso Padma Bhushan Pandit Baswaraj Rajguru. Nachiketa has performed in several cities across India and North America. He is currently a resident of the San Francisco Bay Area, and he runs the Rajguru Sangeet Vidyaniketan School of Music. Every time I hear Nachiketa sing, I am reminded of the clear tone of the temple bell, for its clarity and resonance, and the ability to bring your attention to the core of your very existence. I've especially enjoyed his Jugalbandis with our close friend Raghavan Manian, where they demonstrate their camaraderie, humor, quick intellect, and mastery over their individual art forms. For Nachiketa, listening demands discipline. He believes analysis of the music adds to the enjoyment of the music. And he also believes that film music is a great complement to instructive listening. So, with that, we will get started with our session. Before we get started with the listening session, I would like to ask Shubhangi an opening question, and then we'll get started. Why don't you share with us what your first listening experience was, a classical music listening experience? What was the concert? Where were you? How old were you? And what effect it had on you?
Okay. You might find this hard to believe, but I was not into classical music at all as a child. I only liked Lata Mangeshkar. I was obsessed with her singing. And but my mother always played classical music in our house, and I always listened to it. Never imagined to go learn it and be like a singer like I am now. But as a child, I went to many concerts. I've attended Pandit Bhimsen Joshi's concert when I was very young, but I couldn't understand anything because I was not learning music. It sounded very good, but my first experience as a great listening experience was of my Guruji's Guru. My first Guruji, Kunda Vaishampayanji, she learned from Gwalior Gharana's Yashwant Bua Joshi. So if any of you know, Yashwant Bua Joshi is a great Gwalior Gharana artist, and you will be able to find his recordings on YouTube. But at her their Guru Purnima, I was just learning for a couple of years. And she asked me to sing a bhajan. I sang a bhajan there, and he said, "You have a very beautiful voice." And that was my interaction with him. And after all the students sang, he sang in the end. And that experience was like first time I saw a rag in front of me. His akar and Gwalior Gharana is all about rag structure, so they sing, they bring it out really quickly with fast their phrasing and the play with the tal, and his voice had so much power. And me and my father had gone to the Guru Purnima, and My father doesn't understand any classical music, and he said to me, "I've never heard anyone sing like that. Like this was something completely different than whatever I've heard, the music that I've heard." So that was my first experience.
Thank you, Shubhangi. So the first piece that we'll be playing today is a vocal rendition by Shri D.V. Paluskar. A little bit about Shri D.V. Paluskar. He was born in Nasik, Bombay, to well-known Hindustani musician Vishnu Digambar Paluskar. He was only 10 years old when his father died, and he was subsequently trained by Pandit Vinayak Rao Patvardhan and Pandit Narayan Rao Vyas. He was also trained by Pandit Chintaman Rao Paluskar and Pandit Mirashi Buwa. Shubhangi or the other artists, do you want to add something about D.V. Paluskar before we listen to it? You good? And you mentioned that he was from the Gwalior Gharana, right? So just bear in mind what Shubhangi just told us about the Gwalior Gharana and try to listen for those nuances when we play this recording. Can we play that recording?
Yeah.
Sure. Do you want to offer your thoughts or do you want to ask the audience first?
Let me just say that this was, maybe you forgot to mention that D.V. Paluskar ji passed away very early when he was just 34 years old. So all of this recording must be when he was in his 20s. And you cannot even imagine like his thought, and it was, there's so much depth in his at that age. So that I wanted to mention.
Yeah. Just a little bit of background. My mother was a huge fan of DVP. Huge. So much so that anytime his music came on the radio or TV, she would stop everything, make me stop everything, and make me listen to it. And the very first DVP piece I heard of his was Tilak Kamal, Koilya Bolero. In fact, it is from the same collection where he has sung Vibhas and Tilak Kamod and Gaur Sarang and Hamir and everything. That voice just mesmerized me. And it's so much so that I learned so many rags by just listening to those 3-4 minute pieces of it.
Yes.
And it was so energetic, it was so full of life. And
Yes.
Now I know that how difficult it is to show the rag in 3 minutes and 4 minutes, right? And DVP was able to do that and it was just amazing. It's and just another small tidbit. In a similar manner, I grew up. My mother was a big fan of Amir Khan as well, Ustad Amir Khan. So Amir Khan and D.V. Paluskar I grew up with, and then only later I came to know that they collaborated in a film song in Beju Baba, Aaj Gavat Mana Mero Jhumke. And for me, it was a revelation. It's like, how can these two diggers come together for that one song? And that today,
Salamita loses in that.
he loses it. He loses, yeah. But from what I heard, he insisted on having D.V. Paluskar be his competitor.
Yes. Yeah, I want to say that even my mother's most favorite singer was D.V. Paluskar to this day. I'm so I was laughing when you were saying that. So, and this is especially Vibhas because in our house these Vivid Bharati or radios was always on in the morning, and these short pieces used to come in the morning. And when I still remember the first time I heard Vibhas, this K.S. Kumarova, I stopped and I said, "What is this rag? That Komal Dhaivat was, never heard any melody like that." So that became my favorite, and we were from a middle class family, so we didn't have like records and everything. So I used to wait for this K.S. Kumarova in the morning. And so when we planned this event, I knew this was the first time I'm going to play.
No surprise.
I think there is about Paloshkar, there is this, I've heard people say that his sincerity shows through his music. There's something
That's
very
right.
sincere about him.
Yes.
You know, some kind of divinity that comes through.
Yes.
And the other thing I was going to ask you is, how did all these old singers bring out the old rag in just 3 minutes? I've grown up listening to those
Right,
in the beginning because there was hardly any exposure, any other avenue other than listen to the radio and these 3 pieces, 3-minute pieces.
Yeah, I think in the LP or whatever they had,
Yes.
short ragas, that was,
78 RPMs.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Actually, it's those 3-minute pieces that made people love classical music, like me, because the whole acme of the rag was in 3 minutes, and all the graces of the rag was in those 3 minutes. You didn't have to wait 1 hour to get the feel of the rag.
Exactly.
3 minutes. It was just like listening to a song.
My guru used to say, and his first 78 RPM recording he did in 1943.
Yeah.
In what was he used to learn in current day Pakistan in Lahore, and he had come to Bombay to record. And so he said it was a nerve-wracking experience because there was so much practice that went into every small piece because there were no retakes, there was no editing. If you got it wrong, you were not only did not have a chance to re-record, you were booted out. You know, how can you make, right? So it was a terrific experience because not only did he not have much time to show the rag, but he had to show everything about that rag.
Yeah.
The alap, the bandish, the tans, the nuances in those 3 to 3.5 minutes, and to do that for a whole slew of rags, it was a fantastic experience.
So in one recording experience, they'd probably sing 10 rags in 3 minutes.
Yeah. And if anybody made a mistake at any time, they were gone.
Yeah.
Because there were 100 people waiting behind you.
for listening, I'm sure here some people are here who don't know much about classical music, right? So you can just, now we are so lucky that we can just keep on listening to the same recording until we understand it fully. So I recommend that you listen to one recording as many times as you can. Like, let it play in your car while driving if you want to be a good listener. First you will listen to the voice, then alap, sometimes tabla, but every time you will listen more and more. Like my brother here, he's been, I think for 2 years he's been listening to Ustad Amir Khan's Meg. And now he has memorized it. That's that recording plays in his car all the time. So here in this recording I want to specify that in 3 alaps, he does the whole badat. The first time he goes up to pa, dha, touching dha. Second time he touches sa, comes back. The third time he goes to sa. And it's so vigorously done, but it's complete. You don't need more time for that. The whole khayal and everything. So can we just play the first part again? And also there is one tan in the end which has these triplets. So please acknowledge that. That's why we chose this 3-minute piece, so we can listen again, everybody.
It's amazing how he just goes straight notes. None of us would imagine singing like that, right? But then he brings out the rag. I don't know how he does that. It's yeah. Prasad, would you like to add something, or shall we?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I tell my students that only D.V. Poluskar is one musician whose music is beyond my analysis. Because the moment I start listening to him, everything goes away. So you can't really analyze it with music. But in this specific composition, like, I mean, his music is like textbook to us. So you have any question about any rag, you listen to D.V. Pulskar, then find out. Never ever you will find any deviation from the rag. In this case, I think he's emphasizing the Shredja Pancham such that he wants to create space for the Komal Deva. So if you look at how he's creating space for his Komal Deva, which brings out, so there's a lot of context that goes in that creation. So like we're talking about why certain notes sound so good,
Right.
or certain phrase sounds so good. That's not because of that phrase, that's because everything else that's around it. So you create that context, and then you put that note as the last piece in that context. So that's the missing piece that completes the puzzle. So I'll talk more about it, but we shouldn't think of a musical note as a frequency. It's not a scalar, it's a vector. And that vector encompasses a lot of other things. There is time context, there is other note context, which is a space context and so on. So masters like D.V. Pulskar, their whole mastery is about creating that space, that structure, symmetry, and how he's balancing this creating space for the Yuvat and so on. So you see how he leaves the space and puts that final piece of the puzzle, and creates the aha moment.
Yeah.
So
And to that point, Prasad, that's a very good point. So that's why in our music we call it a swar. It's not a note.
Yeah,
it's not a key on a keyboard. So it is how you approach it from below, from
and there's a
above.
time context also, right?
How
Not
much
just-
of exactly.
So if you see where he starts his thumb, it's on the third microbeat. If you divide that beat in 4 pieces, it starts on the third two. So there is certain optimal points where you start that. It adds to the beauty. So there's.
Can you give us an example?
So it was right there in his recording. It's coming up in Marathon Saab's composition also. Right?
There's also this Gwalior Gharana, especially it's very, very structure based Gharana. So any Gwalior Gharana, if you want to learn about the rag, you should listen to a Gwalior Gharana artist. Good ones. But for them, rag structure and tans, most important. And you will never hear them singing Vilambit, very slow tempo. That's not in their gharana. It's always medium, fast. And they just go from one note to another very quickly and go to tans. If you go to attend, like now, one of my most favorite artists today is Pandit Laska Sharkar. And once I went to his concert and I didn't know he sang this rag that I had never heard, Sindhura. But I really understood it. I understood the structure really quickly. It was like Kafi and there was some, I don't remember. The structure is very clear, and with D.V. Pulskarji, it's in 3
textbook.
minutes.
It's a textbook for many generations to come.
Well, do you know if their actual live concerts would be different, or did they sing?
I've actually seen, you search on the internet, D.V. Pulskarji was so meticulous about his presentation. He had created a sequence of rags. So he would sing certain rags in a certain sequence. So I didn't know, for example, he sang Malgunji at full length. So I've seen his schedule. So he's created a very disciplined. By the way, I grew up a few houses down from Pandit D.V. Pulskarji's house. So everybody in close to Gandhima Vidyalaya. And my dad has so many memories of D.V. Pulskar.
And what about Mumbai?
Pune, this was Pune, yeah. Very close to the Gandhima Vidyalaya. So he learned from disciples of Pandit Vishnu Digambar. Because
His father's disciple.
Yes.
Thank you for that illuminating discussion. I'm sure there's a lot of questions in people's minds. We'll get to those in a bit. The next piece we want to move on to is an instrumental piece. It is a sitar piece by Ustad Vilayat Khan. A little bit about Vilayat Khan. He was born in Gauripur, which was in East Bengal in British India, which is current Bangladesh. His father, Inayat Khan, was recognized as a leading sitar and surbahar player of the time, as had been his grandfather Imdad Khan before him. So he was taught in the family style as the Imdad Khani Grana by his father and other relatives in the family. By the way, this family represents the 6th generation of musicians that dates back to the Mughal Empire. So there's a lot of heritage that comes from that family. However, Inayat Khan died when Vilayat was only 10. So much of his education came from the rest of his family. His uncle, Sitar and Surbahar maestro Wahid Khan, his maternal grandfather, singer Bande Hassan Khan, and his mother, Bashiran Begum, who had studied the practice procedure of his forefathers. His uncle, Zinde Hassan, looked after his riyaz as a little boy. Actually, as a little boy, Vilayat Khan wanted to be a singer. But his mother, herself from a family of vocalists, felt he had a strong responsibility to bear the family torch as a sitar maestro, and so she kind of, coerced him to learn to play the sitar. The other interesting piece is that Ustad Vilayat Khan is credited with the creation and development of the Gayaki Ang, which is how to create a vocal voice type of playing in the sitar, was used to be a discrete type of instrument, and then he created that Ang. So we'll listen to that piece, and I have a particular question for you, Prasad, after that.
Sure. So beautiful. Now we have heard songs in all these rags, right? So many times we wonder about what's the difference between a song and a composition that you want to use for performing, right? So there's at least 3 differences. Number 1 is that a song adheres to a rag, whereas a composition defines a rag. Right? For example, a song is, it might be a beautiful picture of a national park, but a composition is a map of that national park. It will take you through, it will show you path, and it will bring you back. Right? So that's one difference. The second difference is that in a composition like this one, there is space created for you to join that main composition at multiple points. So for in this case, we'll see he has a 9th beat opening, and he also has a 7th beat opening that he created before. And then there's various points at which you can join the composition, also the first beat. So the pauses are created in such a way that it provides you a ramp to join the composition in a seamless way. So wherever your thought process takes you, you have an exit. You have a nearby exit. So you don't have to wait for the whole cycle. And third thing is about aesthetics, but we'll see that a little bit later. So that balances the emphasis on Madi Somari, and it creates a lot of. So in this case, for example, if you see the time he spent on that Komal Nishad mean, that was for a reason, because he wanted to create that to tie that to the Gandhar later. So those type of aesthetic connections between different points is much deeper thought out in a composition versus a song. So a song is just a picture, really beautiful picture, but it's not a map. Composition is a map. Okay.
Thank you for that, Prasad. Would you like to comment, any of you, on how to listen to instrumental versus vocal? How do you tune yourself? Because some of us may be more tuned towards listening to a vocal.
So I'll add one thing to that.
Yeah.
In case of sitar, especially you have to also pay attention to technique that's used for playing this. Right? So I'll probably, what I learned from this composition, it's a light learning exercise for me, because I'd never heard this before last week. So in case of sitar, you have to also pay attention to the strokes. So here he has tied basic building blocks of the strokes so nicely, and those are traditionally used strokes. So in this case, for example, first of all, he's tuned the sitar in C sharp. So what I noticed, what I learned, what I heard. Listen to sitar now, right? If you're a sitar student, if you have curiosity on how can I reproduce parts of it, maybe a fraction of it. So he's going to use these different techniques at different points. So this part you have to listen to as to how he has produced different notes using what technique. everywhere, wherever he has used that khatka jam, there's 10 different alankars in sitar. So what you listen to is not just the notes he has produced, but also the strokes he has used. Da 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 da. So all of that is very traditional in sitar, those strokes, those techniques, that mean, khatka jamjama, everything. So you listen to the notes, you listen to what strokes he must have played, what techniques he must have used, that you have to visualize if it's not a video, and then how it's all woven in that time framework. So he has created a space on the 7th beat, he has created space on the 9th beat, and he has left a mean for doing that gat vistar that he was doing. So he was creating so many different structures around from the 12th beat till the sun. So in that same framework, he created so many different variations. For example, if you remember, we can play those here. But all of that space is left there for a reason. So it's a very thoughtfully constructed framework in which helps you to elaborate. And the strokes and the techniques is the additional thing you have to listen to when you listen to sitar. If you want to learn from it, if not, if it creates joy no matter what. If you want to, you don't have to know the technicality, but if you want to reproduce it, which is the next step that you're going to want to do, then you have to produce the exact same sound. You have to know the exact same technique.
I have one more point to what you said, so, and what you also said earlier, Shravan, which is, in order to get to know a rag, to get to be able to listen more intently and more get deeper into the rag, I think a rag like this, like Pilu, if you listen to Pilu from different artists, you'll find different interpretations, but you will see that they are doing the same thing, but they are coming at it from different directions. For example, this Pilu by Vilayat Khan had a very nice introduction of the Komal Dhaivat, whereas a Pilu by Ravi Shankar or Bismillah Khan, Hari Prasad Chaurya, Shiv Kumar Sharma, you don't find that Komal Dhaivat so much. Definitely not as early in the composition. So that gives you an idea of how even a rag like Pilu, which seems to be a light rag, can be really interpreted in so many different ways. And just to add to that, there is a beautiful Pilu opening in the lovely song Dhundo Dhundo Re Sajna from the film Ganga Jamna. There is, Lata is of course Lata, right? But before Lata starts, there's a 30-second, 40-second Pilu piece. Oh, it is a simply fantastic piece. I don't know who Naushad employed to get that. Maybe Lata himself. Yeah, who knows? But it is that 30-second piece of Pilu is just super. So that's to what I was saying, to what you also mentioned, right? I think film music, with certain exceptions, can make a great learning complement to rags, different rags.
What I liked about this piece was, first of all, Vilayat Khan, as the tone of his sitar is so bright, it just makes you feel happy instantly. And the main, in the beginning itself, there's this main. That's
That should be on the
you don't expect it to just make a circle like this and come back.
And a lot of it is from Kafi, Zilla Kafi. There is the same meaning in Zilla Kafi also.
Yeah.
And that's Devaganda play. But light rags are harder to play than other rags.
That's true.
Because you can create everything, you don't know what to create.
Yeah, you have so many choices.
It's too much freedom.
Yeah.
It has to fit in, right?
There's also, when I listen, I always wonder how this artist must be in real life, or what he thinks. So I always thought that he is always, whenever he did his riyazi, he probably said, how can I make this more beautiful? And that I always think when he was playing, I was thinking that adding more and more subtle things.
Yes,
and
yes.
You were asking about vocal versus.
Yes, yeah. How do we listen differently?
Some people connect to instrumental music better than vocal, but in India we connect to vocal music better. Here in this country, it's I find that because you don't understand the language, so you connect to instrumental better. But like you mentioned in
I think
lessons.
in this country,
Huh?
non-Indians connect to Drupad more.
True.
Less.
I can speak
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that.
It's very structured,
yeah,
so they connect to it a lot more than Khayal.
yeah.
Khayal is Indian thought, it's a philosophy. Drupad is more structured, so I think they relate to it a lot more.
Yeah, but most,
For me, as the non-Indian, to speak directly to that, it's that it seems like it has a clear connection to Nada Yoga, which is something
Yes.
that I also study. And so I think the other types of Hindustani are more derived, and so Drupad is more fundamental.
That's true.
so, but most artists who play instruments, you ask them and they love to sing.
That is.
Even tabla players, I've seen so many.
Actually,
That's
Shravan is
I told Shubhangiji, when you and Nachi is here, I'm not going to sing. That's why I'm not listening.
So I told him
Yeah,
this thing.
sometimes actually when they're playing, why don't they just sing a little?
Yeah. You know, that's a very important point. I learned from Ustad Ali Akbar Khan for a few years, for about 4 years, and in pretty much any of his classes, he didn't have a great voice or anything.
Yeah.
But he would reproduce what he wanted to get from his brain to his mouth so beautifully, right? If you took out the voice quality element, right, it was divine music. And then of course he would be able to convey it much better with his hands, right? But he would always say, and to all his students he would say, you need to learn to sing. It doesn't matter if you don't need to perform, but you have to sing in order to play.
But you know, in case of sitar, it has lineage from 3 different things: Khayal, Drupad, and the Veena. So there is certain types of compositions which come from Veenkari. They are not vocal type compositions. In Pilu, I can quickly demonstrate one which is very different from what Vilas Khan played, because that's vocal based. Right? So sitar has lineage of 3 different traditions.
Right.
Really quick. But it will sound very, very different. You won't even be able to tell if it's the same rag or not. Tivra Mutim is also there. Yeah. So it's totally instrumental style. There is no vocal element in that.
So vocal, I feel words bring sweetness to, means if you just listen to a singer sing only in akar and just like tarana, for example, tarana also each syllable has meanings. Now Ustad Amir Khan did research and there was this, he has this recording of how taranas are not meaningless. But so words is the mukhda of any khayal or bandish. The words associate to the mode of the rag. So it's for me, of course, as being a vocalist, I enjoy listening to vocal music more. But some artists, you cannot really compare because. There are artists who I feel like they are actually singing and not playing, like Sarangi and this one also. you could feel that he's
Singing.
singing.
Yeah.
Singing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you call it Gaikiya?
Gaikiya, yeah. And instrumental music, there is the structure is also different. In the concert, Vilayat Khan apparently he didn't like this. The whole tabla, solo tabla in between playing sitar. I heard one of his interviews, and but nowadays the instrumental music they play something, then the tabla plays for quite some time, and then they go back to. So that's the style. Vocal music they don't have that. We just tabla is just accompanying. Yeah. So that is how it's different.
Thanks for that. And to your point, Nachiketa, if there is a vocal accompaniment to it helps listeners connect better, I think, if they demonstrate a little bit vocally and then go back to the instrument. Actually, there's a young Carnatic musician called Ramana Balachandar, right? Some of you may have heard him. He's an old soul. He's a young kid. I mean, young, maybe 30s, but he's an old soul. He plays the veena. He also sings beautifully. So he sings and then he plays it. It helps you connect. Oh, this is what he's trying to say, and then it kind of informs your listening that comes afterward. All right. So we will move on to the next piece. So this one is an interesting piece here. It's a jugalbandi. It's a vocal jugalbandi, and it is between two women who are sisters.
It's Jugal Gaiki.
Jugal Gaiki. So Hirabai Barodekar and Saraswati Rani. A little bit about them. Hirabai was born as a Champakali to Kirana Gharana master Ustad Abdul Karim Khan and Tarabai Mane. So how did the two of them get together? A little bit of backstory here. Tarabai was the daughter of Sardar Maruti Rao Mane, brother of princely Baroda state's Rajamata during the middle of the 19th century. Abdul Karim Khan was a court musician in Baroda when she was young, when Tarabai was young. And then they met, and he taught her music. So the two of them fell in love and they decided to get married. But Tarabai's parents disapproved of the alliance and the couple had to leave the state. So they moved to Mumbai and had two sons, Suresh or Abdul Rahman and Krishna, and three daughters, Champakali, Gulab and Sakina or Chotutai. After Tarabai separated from her husband, she renamed all her 5 children, and hence Sakina became known as Saraswati Mane. So in their adult lives, the 5 children respectively became known as Suresh Babu Mane, Krishna Rao Mane, Hirabai Barodekar, who was also known as Champutai by close friends, Kamla Bai Barodekar and Saraswati Bai Rani. Hirabai had her initial training from her brother, Suresh Babu Mane, and later she had training from the doyen of Kirana Gharana, Ustad Abdul Wahid Khan, who was a cousin of her father. Saraswati Bai Rane was initiated into music by her brother, Suresh Babu Mane, and later she also started learning from her sister. There's an interesting bit of connection here to one of our artists. Hirabai and Saraswati Rane learned from their older brother, Suresh Babu Mane, who also happens to be Shubhangitai's guru's guru. Prabhatai, Dr. Prabhatre learned from them. And Dr. Prabhatre also holds an annual music festival in Mumbai by the name of Suresh Babu Hirabai Smriti Sangeet Samaroh, and that's been going on since 1992, and it's one of the major festivals of music in India. So let's listen to this piece. It's a slightly long piece. Do you want to say a few words?
This is a Vinambit Khayal, so we won't get a chance to replay it. So first of all, when you listen to Vinambit, this is how I learned listening, because when I had not learned Khayal and I heard Khayal, I used to figure out the tal first. So from first sound to second sound, count the beats, and once you know the tal, the mukhda, and then you see how the thought is put in one avartan, one cycle. But here I wanted to acknowledge each matra, how they use to put their thought. This is in Rag Chandrakans, and Hirabai was famous for a high shadaj, tar shadaj. So acknowledge that too. They both, you cannot really tell who's singing. I can tell because I've heard it many times. Please enjoy.
Yeah, I tried to figure it out, I couldn't.
That's why you have to listen at least 100 times.
Used to term avartan bharna, or literally the filling of an avartan from sum to sum. How do you fill that long gap, what seems to be like a long gap, right, with beautiful content, right? If you notice, every cycle that they sang was different from the other. Whether it was going higher or making more variations in the same small range or larger range, everything was different. And what my guru would also say is, you have to like what you create. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter.
And if you like it, then there are chances that others might.
Others might like it. and you can tell these two are having such a bond. Right? They're having so much fun. They're exchanging ideas off of each other, and they're liking each other's and their own output.
And Hirabai Badodekar was pioneer of all women artists. She was the first one who sang it in concerts, and everybody, like family people, they came to listen, and it was very well. She was very well respected. Before that, women were not. They would sing in concerts with means along with men, but she was the first one. And so after her, and she was extremely popular during her time, and because of her, like, all other women got inspired to learn music. Otherwise, parents would not teach their daughters music because.
Was Kesarbai before her?
But she was the first one to perform in public. Public performances, she gave many. I don't know what Kesarbai.
She went under the. It's said that she went under the wings of Kesarbai to get more of a sort of a boost.
Yeah. And in this rag, as Nachiket said, they were enjoying and like filling the avartan means if you use each matra, acknowledge each matra as you sing, then only you can put your ideas. If you just go from, okay, now tira kita dhin, I have to sing until then, the avartan becomes too long. So in Kirana Gharana artists, I don't know why they are criticized for not paying attention to tal. Look at these women, like everything was like so much with the lay perfectly. They do subtle things with lay.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, another great singer, Mallikarjun Mansoor, he would have a very different take. So he would also do an avartan bharna kind of phenomena. The thing is, if you listen to, for example, his Tilak Kamod, Surasangat, the Surasangat, that one line, he sings for 20 times, 25 times, right? If you're not paying attention, all of those lines sound exactly the same. But if you listen carefully, and to your point, you have to listen to it 100 times. If you listen carefully, you'll see that there is some really small delta between any two cycles. And that is what he forces you to catch that. He forces you to listen more intently and find out what is that change that is different from the previous cycle. So it's a very different thing.
Time is always fresh. Every time you make a slight change in time, the same phrase will sound like different and beautiful.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the anticipation that they build up for the sa and how?
Yeah, Chandrakaus is the nishad is very prominent in the rag because Malkaus is a big rag in Hindustani classical music. So for Chandrakaus to become like popular, you have to really show the beauty of nishad. Otherwise, it will sound like Malcolm's, and it will be not another, I mean, a special rag at all. So the way they show this Nishad and the Gandhar and Nishad, ni sa ga ga sa ni sa ga ni ga sa, that ga ma da ni da ni sa ga sa ni da ni da ga ga sa ni. So sa is in the end when you finish your sentence. Sa, until then you just connect with the ni more.
Right.
So.
But then, Khayal Gaya Kire, we were just listening to your Multani while coming on the way, and I was just, so whenever you keep showing every note, right, at some point it becomes so, I get so anxious that I want to listen to this schedule.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
it's already there in my mind.
Yeah.
Sing it now.
Don't make me wait so much. Wait for that.
See, that's the context that Prasad was referring to, right? They create the context and they make the weight of the anticipation so much that when the artist lands on the note, you're like, yes,
Yes.
this is what I was waiting
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
and they create that moment. That's,
we have
that's
to
special.
remember that music is not only transmit side, 50% of it is receive side.
Right.
So the difference between good music and great music is good music is about transmit side, great music also incorporates the listening side. There's some tricks your brain is playing. For example, if you look at a white background with a red dot for 10 seconds, you look at another white background, the brain is going to create contrast color, green color. Similarly in music. So they use vivadis for all sorts of things, but the impact, the performer has to also know the listener side of it, not just the transmit side. So that's where you create all the context, anticipation, everything, without squeezing the lemon too much before it becomes bitter. Right, sir?
But is it a conscious thought on the side of the performer, or is it?
No, it has to be conscious thought because you don't always consider only the transmit side. You also have to pay attention to the receive side. So how your brain is going to interpret things, how your brain is going to fill in for something that you never played, or some notes that you introduced in a rag. So for example, in rags like this, we play Tivra Madhyam and nobody can tell because your brain is anticipating something else. It sounds good.
So, we talked a lot about music. And how about the conversation with the tabla or the harmonium? How do you listen to that combination, the conversation?
As a listener,
Yeah.
that's why I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you listen to the same recording again and again. Sometimes I just listen to the tabla. Only tabla, like I become the tabla player, you can say. Sorry. And I listen to it as a tabla player. How that's why tabla players, they know all music, every badat, every rag they know because they listen and they hold the artist. So
It's entirely
and then so after you do all this listening from different angles, the laikari, how the singer has used his voice or the instrumental, how they played, the dynamics, then you can just become like a curtain and listen to the whole thing without any expectation, and that is the best. But you have to listen to the same recording many times to and you have to almost like memorize the whole thing, and you're just there. You know?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
When I was young, I was never listening to tabla. I was so much into melody, and slowly Surrender used to tell me, listen to tabla, listen. And I was like, where's tabla? It was honestly, the melody would capture me so much, and of course we listened to the same music of those days, And I was totally engrossed in melody, and that's still my power, but tabla is.
No, like they said, the real drama happens in between beats, not on the
Yes,
beats.
right. Yes,
So there's a
absolutely.
lot of micro beats in between.
Yes.
That's where all the drama happens. Beat is just to keep you aligned on the track, so you don't derail.
Yeah.
Since there is a subject of tabla, let's ask a question anyway. So this coming to the sum, right? That is so much similar to what Shantanu was saying, that the anxiousness and about the sur. There is also you have the anticipation to coming to the sum as well. So how do you listen to that in terms of music, and how do you appreciate that part of it? And from a musician's perspective, how does it look like? So any comments on that?
Yes, that's a very good point. And from I'll first start from a listener's perspective, and like Shravan was saying, figuring out what tal it is first. How many beats there are? Is it vilambit ek tal? Especially in a vilambit, it is not obvious that it is 12 beats or 14 beats. If you listen to Amir Khan's compositions, renditions, there are either Jhumra tal or 14 beats, right? If you're not counting properly, you don't know what you're listening to, right? So the anticipation of when you're, let's say in Jhumra 14 beats, when you're around the 11, 12 beat area, 12th beat area, then you know that there is a sum coming. So for me, as a listener, I am really looking forward to not the fact that the 15th beat, the sum is going to happen. For me, I'm listening to how Amir Khan is going to come to that sum, right? So I have already made some kind of expectation that the tabla guy is going to come on sum, that 15th beat is going to be the sum, but the journey from the 12th beat to the first beat, that is an amazing, for me, is a very special, it's a special journey for me. And it happens every Sunday, and it's so beautiful. And from a performer's perspective, it is not very different, actually. I want to, as a singer, I want to show that last 3-4 beats. How can I make that more interesting for myself? And like you said, maybe the others will find it interesting too.
Yeah. So in 1 hour then your alap start. There is this thing called Utpatti, Sthiti and Lay. So you start a thought, then you stay at one point, that's around Khali, and then you start coming down. So he was talking about that coming down part from 12th beat. So in Vilambit Ektal I sing and teach. So most of my students, they only wake up and is 9th beat. So I tell them to first listen to Khali, cut. And then you should start finishing your thought. Not on the 9th beat, when there's no time, and then you might miss the sum. And so cut is important, and then after you do that, then each matra is important, starting from second, third, fourth, because then you know what to do and how to make the cycle fully complete. Each thought completes beautifully. Not just the last 2 or 3 beats, but the whole time you are doing that journey. In this, each avartan is like living life.
Yes. Yeah.
You may have seen Shravan is not just a musician, she's also a stand-up comedian. We enjoy her humor quite a bit in our classes.
Questions?
Alright, moving.
Question. Hi, I just had a quick question. I know you mentioned like Malcounts was like a heavier rag, and I know the Pilo was a light rag, right? So what are the attributes that make it a light? Has it been light by associations for hundreds of years, or is the property of the rag like that makes, and maybe you could give us some illustrations?
It's the combinations of notes that produce the melody, and that melody brings out a mood. So some those specific note combinations, like Malcolm Saga Madhanisa, you just sing Aroha and Avaroha, you will feel like a strong, it has a very strong tune and a mood. That's how it's, and Pilu is more romantic rag, which is mostly in vocal music. We only sing thumris in Pilu. You have to actually learn a little bit of music to understand or listen to some serious rags, like even Bhoop is a very big rag. It has only Shuddha Swar, all basic notes, 5 notes, pentatonic, but it is a big rag compared to if you say like Kafi or Khamaj. They have more notes, but they are more light. Mood is light.
I think, isn't it, what kind of emotional depth does the rag have?
Yes.
What variations can you do with it? Yeah. And the artist himself feels the enormity of the rag.
Yeah.
It's not just 5 notes and that's it.
Yeah. Each square is
feel
big,
that.
huge.
Yeah, that's what makes the rag big. The
And then
variations you can make.
and then there are some rags that are derived from folk music.
Yeah.
Mand, Pahadi,
Yes.
Asa. So these come, and these are traditionally folk music that have become light rags. So there was somebody at some point put a structure to these folk tunes, and they became light rags.
Also in vocal music, in certain gharanas, Kirana Gharana, this is mostly done because sur is very, very important in Kirana Gharana. So each swar, they take time to develop. So if you listen to Agra or Gwalior, they don't have this. They just sing everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's very much true.
Also depends on the rag. Some rags go phrase by phrase development, upward, downward, hand in hand. Gaud Saran, for example. Some other rags will go note by note.
Yeah, even rags are, some gharanas sing certain rags only and the other gharanas don't sing those. ऐसे भी होता है.
All right, thank you for that. So I have a few anecdotes about Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, so bear with me. They are interesting anecdotes, you will like them. Pandit Bhimsen Joshi was one of the greatest Indian vocalists from Karnataka in the Hindustani classical tradition. He is known for the khayal form of singing as well as for his popular renditions of devotional music, bhajans and abhangs. He belongs to the Kirana Gharana tradition of Hindustani classical music. He hailed from Dharwad district, and that was then in the Bombay Presidency of British India. His father, Guru Raj Joshi, was a school teacher. Bhimsen was the eldest among 16 siblings.
Wow.
He lost his mother at a very young age. As a child, Joshi was fascinated with music and musical instruments like the harmonium and tanpura, and would often follow processions accompanied by music bands. This exercise often tired him out, and he would curl up somewhere and he would fall asleep, and forcing his parents to go to the police after efforts to trace him failed. Fed up with this, his father, Guru Rajacharya Joshi, came up with a solution. He made writing saying "Son of Teacher Joshi" on Bhimsen Joshi's t-shirts. This worked, and those who found this little boy sleeping would safely deposit him back in the house. So such was his interest in music. His first music teacher was Channappa, who had trained with the veteran singer Inayat Khan, and Pandit Bhimsen Joshi learnt ragas Bhairav and Bhimpalasi from Channappa. Once, Bhimsen Joshi heard a recording of Abdul Karim Khan's Thumri, Piya Bin Nahi Avat Chena, in Raga Jhinjhoti, when he was a child. This is what inspired him to become a musician. During this time, he also heard Pandit Savai Gandharva at a performance. So in 1933, this 11-year-old boy left Dharwad for Bijapur to find a master and learn music. With the help of money from his co-passengers on the train, Joshi reached Dharwad first and then later went to Pune. Later he moved to Gwalior and he got into Madhava School of Music, a school run by the Maharajas of Gwalior with the help of the famous sarod player Hafiz Ali Khan. He traveled for 3 years around North India, including Delhi, Kolkata, Gwalior, Lucknow, and Rampur, trying to find a guru. He met Ustad Mushtaq Hussain Khan of Rampur Gharana and stayed for more than a year with him. Eventually, his father succeeded in tracking him down in Jalandhar, and he brought this young Joshi back home. In 1936, Savai Gandharva, a native of Dharwad, agreed to be his guru. Bhim Singh Joshi then stayed at his house in the Guru Sishya Parampara, and he continued his training with Savai Gandharva. I tell you this because we have access to such eminent gurus and musicians, so eager to teach us and available. And I wonder sometimes when we drive our kids to classes whether they understand, how easy it is for them to access this when this little boy went through so much just to find his guru. And he was first of 16 kids, so opportunities were pretty hard to come by then. So just wanted to juxtapose that to the age we live in. So since you are from that area, I wanted to get your thoughts on your first listening experience and what it is that led you to becoming a musician.
My first classical listening experience was, interestingly, in Jamshedpur. I grew up in Jamshedpur, and Bhim Singh Joshi had come.
I thought it
No, I'm from Dharwad,
Okay.
but I grew up in many places: Jamshedpur, Madras, Indonesia. So, so in Jamshedpur, I very vaguely remember attending Bhim Singh Joshi's concert. He had come there for a concert, and I don't know what he sang and how long he sang, but I just remember just sitting there and being mesmerized by the energy of his. He was very physical guy, animated physical, and he would make all kinds of action on the stage, and I was fascinated by that more than anything else. But then my parents, of course, they told me about that we come from the same place as this man. I was like, oh great, that's fantastic, my claim to fame. And then later on, I listened to him. My mother, of course, would force me to listen to him, and my guru, he was a guru hai of Bhim Singh Joshi, because they both learned from Savai Gandharva, and my guru also learned from Suresh Babu Mane for some time. Yeah, he did. And so that whole, all those different tidbits and different experiences made me so proud to be even vaguely, remotely associated with Bhim Singh Joshi. And so when I did finally meet him in person, this was in Bangalore in 1986. He had come for a Jugalbandi with Balmurali Krishna. And so when I met him, I introduced myself. I told him I'm from Dharwad, and he's like, so, and my grandfather was a friend of his, and so I mentioned my grandfather's name. Immediately he threw his arms out and said, hey, welcome, it's so nice to see you and everything. 9 years later, I met him here in Berkeley. In 1995, on May 6th, he had a concert, and I relayed that experience. He remembered everything. He remembered. So for me, Bhim Singh Joshi is on a pedestal. I'm not alone, I know that. So it was and anything he sang, anything he did, it was instant gold.
Mm-hmm.
And as we listen now, you know exactly what I mean.
So, this is another khayal, and one of my really favorite recordings of Bhim Singh Joshi. So we'll play Shravan.
The pace of the Vilambit was a little faster.
Yeah.
It was my mistake. It was in Vilambit Tal. I don't know why I thought it was in Tal before.
Yeah, and that tabla also was so beautiful. That is Vasant Achrekar. He was an amazing tabla artist. He played a lot with Kumar Gandhar. So Vasant Achrekar on tabla.
He has accompanied
Kumar Gandhar was his standard torch player, but so beautiful. And the sum of this bandish is in the lower ma, which is in step with the nature of Puriya, the rag Puriya itself, which is a very Purvang rag, as in the bulk of the work is in the lower registers. And Bhimsen Joshi does such a beautiful job of keeping that ni and that ma and in perfect harmony with. And if you notice, the Tanpura is also set to ni. It was, and interestingly, he would set the Tanpura to ni for pretty much all rags, even if the rags did not have a ni.
Yes,
Very interesting. It sounded just fine. It was a very, very
But
interesting
Amir Khan
phenomenon.
Saab also did the same.
Who did?
Amir Khan Saab.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
have not
he
noticed.
also.
Okay. It's just outstanding. And to what you were saying earlier, he would create that thirst, that quest for the sa, and then give it to you at the very end of the cycle. he would complete your request.
And I noticed that the way, but just before he picked up the sthai, his phrasing would be in theme with what he presented throughout the cycle. You know, what you said. He was making it interesting in every single avartan,
Yes.
Yeah.
but it was very much in keeping with, okay, what was he doing before?
Yeah.
And it was like a
Yeah.
big
Yeah, it's
story.
a great artist. Like their singing is like a speech. You know, everything has meaning. It's very logical. That's why when you listen, this one, if you listen only a few times, you will start again. It's so clear what he's saying.
Yes.
It's very, very clear. And I really I'm mesmerized by how he puts so much content in such a short avartan.
Yeah.
His tabla speed is so fast, avartan is very short. And it's everything is like
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, it's just exactly.
It's just
Just
all the
flawless.
time perfectly.
Just
With
flawless.
pauses, with nyas.
Yes, yeah.
And in that same release, he also there is also Vrindavan Sarang, Tum Rab Tum Sahib. Oh my God! These two pieces, Puriya and Vrindavan Sarang, I know by heart. So I don't even need to listen. To your point, listen to it 100 times.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, I also think this is perfect Puriya.
Yes.
It probably couldn't get any better than
Yeah,
that.
exactly. It's a gold
And
standard.
it's, like we said, it shows us the map. Every key phrase in Puriya is here. Right? So like he said, the Samidamma, Mareni. So the Puriya is so perfectly and tightly wound. But I think the real test of a singer is the higher part of the octave in Puriya, to save it from Sony. Right? And he has done it so beautifully.
From Sony.
Yeah.
So when he hits the tar shadja, then he brings it back to Puriya so beautifully.
Yeah.
Sa, dhani, madha, back. No
Yeah.
question of confusion.
Yeah.
It's so clear. A lot of thought went. I mean, what appears like a very concise and compact presentation probably has so much more thought behind it. But
So many hours of practice. Yeah.
So I have a question. When you are looking at a rag like Puriya, which is so big, as a listener, how do we even get our head around that vastness of it?
You have to like it.
I mean, in my opinion, you have to listen to it multiple times, and each time you'll get a different perspective. Right?
There are a lot of Amir Khan Saab's Puriyas, which I think are the ultimate. There's nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Several on YouTube. Just listen to them. I mean, they're just mesmerizing. I don't think anybody has sung Puriya better than Amir Khan.
Yes.
it takes ages, right?
Yes.
This rag is.
Yeah.
So I was told by somebody that
Five
Ustad
versions of it.
Ustad Imdad Khan Sahib, Abid Khan's, Bilal Khan Sahib's grandfather, he played only 3 rags in public concerts. Although he has short pieces he played, so he played Yaman, Khamaj and Puriya all his life. Right? These are the only 3 rags he played. That's why in Bilal Khan's style on sitar you see Puriya is very special, Khamaj is very special, Yaman is very special because so much thought went into it.
Yeah, I want to add to what Surendraji said.
Yeah, answering that question, I think it's, you just have to listen to it, not trying to understand it, but trying to like it.
Feel it.
Yeah.
Feel it.
Feel it.
Yeah, then trying to feel it. There's
And
there's
Ustad Amir Khan Sahab probably was one of the very few artists who performed his Marwa and Puriya. Both are so good. Marwa
exactly.
and Puriya,
I was about to say, right?
yeah, they have identical notes, only the rag structure is completely different and Badi Samadhi is different. So usually artists who sing Puriya or practice Puriya, study it, they don't sing Marwa that much. Marwa गाने वाले Puriya नहीं इतना गाते हैं, but he has done both rags equally good and like.
anything he has sung is,
Yeah.
you know, the ultimate.
Yeah.
I mean, it was relatively small rag like Neg. If you see he has sung Neg for an hour and a quarter, I have one of the recording. 20 minutes of constant male concerto. I don't know why he gets
Yes.
that. I think we'll have to have a session on that sometime.
Yeah,
Just
I decided not to include his music because many people have, they don't understand it because it's slow, and so we'll probably have to do one session just for his music.
Yeah. Just for
Yes.
Talaps.
Yes. Understand Jumra.
But if you want to do Puriya, I have a suggestion based on my experience. I found Puriya Kalyan as the first intermediate step. You can capture Puriya phrases and your favorite Kalyan. Kalyan is much more user friendly. So step by step.
Which side? The performing side or
So I would say Puriya Kalyan is more player friendly.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the last piece that we'll be playing today. There are two pieces, same artist. This is Shehnai by Ustad Bismillah Khan. A little bit about Bismillah Khan. He was born on 22nd March 1916 into a family of traditional Muslim musicians in a town called Dumra. And he was the second son of Paigambar Baksh Khan and Vetan Bai. His father was a court musician employed in the court of Maharaja Keshav Prasad Singh of Dumrao estate in Bihar. His two grandfathers, Ustad Salar Hussain Khan and Rasul Baksh Khan, were also musicians in the Dumrao palace. He was named Kamaruddin at birth to rhyme with his elder brother's name, Shamsuddin. Upon seeing the newborn, his grandfather, Rasul Baksh Khan, also a Shehnai player, is said to have exclaimed, Bismillah, or in the name of Allah. And thereafter, this baby came to be known as Bismillah. At the age of 6, he moved to Varanasi to be apprenticed to his maternal uncle, Ali Baksh Vilayatu Khan, a Shehnai player attached to the Kashi Vishwanath temple. At the age of 14, he started accompanying his uncle to the Allahabad Music Conference. Ustad Bismillah Khan, as everybody knows, is credited with popularizing the Shehnai. It's a reeded woodwind instrument. He played it with such expressive virtuosity that he became a leading Hindustani classical music artist for this instrument. His name is indelibly linked with this instrument. The Shehnai had long held importance as a folk instrument, whereas Bismillah Khan is credited with elevating its status from being a folk instrument and bringing it to the concert stage. Khan was a devout Muslim, but he performed at both Hindu and Muslim ceremonies, and he was considered a symbol of religious harmony. We will now listen to the pieces.
Yeah, Rag Tori first. These are very short pieces, again like same as D.B. Paluskar's short pieces, and you don't have to analyze it or anything, it's just
sheer enjoyment.
Yes.
Very curious combination of, or emphasis on sa actually.
Saga.
He didn't make rega because I think he wanted to make it sound a little more uplifting than bringing out the pathos into it. So he created sagas, and if you see the distribution of the notes, you'll find he's balanced everything with firm emphasis on sa, either tar shadji or main shadji. I think he deliberately is doing that to get the right mood that he wants. A little more playful.
And he does that sarega in the upper octave.
Yeah.
And
he uses the rain sparingly, but he wants to create a playful mood based on everything that he has done. So he has a clear picture of what he wants to accomplish in terms of the impact.
It's so pure. Each swar so clear, and even the fast, the hala, so clarity is superb.
And like you mentioned, the mean. The
Yeah,
mean
the
is
mean
just...
is- and the patterns like... That's
exactly.
signature.
Yes, signature dispel.
Yeah.
The tablas, the bowl sounded different, no? Shripad? It is tin tabla, but it wasn't
the sound
like
of the tabla.
sound was dhadin dinda, dhadin dinda. It wasn't dhadin dinda, dhadin dinda.
Yeah.
You know, there was that emphasis on that.
Was it a tabla?
It is.
I was wondering if
It
it
is a
was.
different type of. I think the different.
It's not quite tabla, I think.
It's
It's a different type of tabla.
Ah, that's probably.
It could be sur.
Maybe some kind of
tabla.
Yeah.
It's still a tabla, right? It's a more of a sur tabla, I think. More,
Yeah.
more sur
It is.
tabla than
It
it
is.
is.
The rag really touches your heart. Not Todi rag, I'm saying his rendition. Just instantly it touches your heart.
Yeah.
No need to say
This
anything.
also reminds me of that old ad for Vico turmeric. There's a nice story there. There's a nice story there. It is Badi Nazo Se
They would play this at 6 a.m. on All India Radio.
So बड़ी नाजों से पाली हमारी बन्नू हल्दी का उपटन लगाए सखिया. Actually, there's a beautiful Chennai in there. There's Todi Chennai in there. I don't know if it's Bismillah, but it's a beautiful Todi Chennai.
See, we're all standing.
That's probably one of the few compositions where there's sag. So much of balance between sag and without versus Ray and gets it much more serious.
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask actually. Just listening to this one, the mood is different.
Very
It's
different.
not
Even a rag like
standard-
Todi can sound so
yeah.
exuberant.
It's also because the tempo is fast.
Tempo is the tempo.
Very fast. Yeah.
Is it permissible to get a different mood from a raga which is supposed to be somber, to get a happy mood? Is it allowed or is it frowned upon?
Yeah, of course it is. If you
He can carry it. He can carry it. Maybe.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
I had this idea of Bhageshwari Rag. So you have this, like you have listened to Bhageshwari, you sing, you learn, and when first time I heard Pandit Kumar Gandharva, first time I saw, this is a happy rag.
Yeah.
It depends on the artist and how he sees this. Because there are some rags which have Komal Nishad in it, and you can make it very sad and also very happy. There is that room. With Komal, Dhaivat and Rishabh, it's hard, but like he said, if you focus more on Sa, the mood is completely different.
Very different, yeah.
Surinder, I think you have to earn that freedom. It's not available to us common people. You have to be a master at it, and then you can do whatever you want.
Even a rag like Bhairavi, which can be really sad or really happy, right? And that range of a rag like Bhairavi, music directors like Shankar Jaikishan took full advantage. If you listen to the Bhairavi compositions, you don't even know that it's Bhairavi. They're suddenly so happy. Right? So,
can I ask a question on that also? Do you think these singers, awesome singers, that they change their view of the ragas over the course of their career, of their singing career? Like they might think they might start with something initially, right, and then they might say, hey, how about try something else? Because they can't sing same rag every time, right? So,
absolutely.
It's a journey.
It's an evolving thing for them. Definitely.
Yes.
Should we play the next piece?
This
will be the final piece for tonight.
It's so difficult to bring out the rag like Vasant Bahar in 3 minutes. It's beautiful. It's one of the very few rags that have all 12 notes. And so to go between Vasant and Bahar and still bring out the beauty of both rags, only this guy can do it. But,
and even technically, it's so hard to go between flat notes and on an instrument. It's very hard. So this rag is very hard to play on any instrument.
Even singing.
To
switch.
It's very hard.
But he's not showing anything. Like, look at me.
yeah, exactly.
Look at me.
Yeah.
It's just coming in the flow.
So naturally.
Yeah, naturally, effortless. Well, after Bismillah Khan, I just become speechless. I don't know what to say.
Do you ever think that, like, judge a rag by, is it consistent with prakasha? You know, prakasha? Prakasha is this one with, well, I think of it as one with Shiva. One with Shiva. So I listen to this, and these ragas always bring me down deeper into meditation, and they make me resonate more with prakasha. So for me, that's what pulls me to Hindustani music more and more.
Yeah, I mean, listening for sure, but for me, even when I'm practicing or even performing, yes, I'm lost sometimes. I'm not paying attention to anything happening around me. And that can be good and bad. Many times I'm singing when I'm driving, and then I'm missing exits. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, the beauty of rags is like rags. I feel they're about your journey of your life, because you learn so much that how to face challenges. Because some rags like Todi, for example, when you come back to sa, it is like hope. Hope. It gives you, okay, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yes.
And you're never stuck on one note.
Like,
yeah.
You're never stuck in one place.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're always coming back.
Yeah.
Just allow yourself to keep on coming back.
Back, yes.
We have time for one more.
Well, I think we have time for just one more question and then we'll end.
Maybe you can wrap up. I was wondering about these creating the moods and rags. Right? So from rag, there are special rags with two adjacent notes, and like I just want to hear your take on that. Like we have Lalat with two madhyams, Jog with two bandhas, and Niyamalar with two dishas. They are very special, and those actually create very, very specific. Because somehow I am personally, from talking for me, I just so get attracted to those rags, like Niyamalar and these Jog, because it creates me also, but also I don't have any idea of what it is from rag perspective.
Yeah, so I think that rags like this, they have they have this magic of creating multiple moods in the same rag. Right? When you're going, Miyamalhar for example, ni dha ni sa ni dha, it gives me a sense of gravitas. And ni dha ni sa, then suddenly it's release. Right? So that, and in a very short period, in the same rag, right? I think you're right. It's very very interesting. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Rags like Kedar, Lalit, where the two notes are next to each other and they're not necessarily rags like Miyamala, you take Shuddhini only going up, Komali only coming down, right? Whereas Kedar and they're right next to each other and you use the two merged together. I think it's a different mindset, I think, in interpreting those rags. Whereas straightforward rags like Malkaus, for example, it's a different mindset. And listening to them and even rendering them.
Yeah. When I think in more depth, I feel like we give names to these swaras. They're actually, we say Komal Gandhar, Shuddha Gandhar and all, but there are these 12 notes. So these different combinations, they make different feelings or tunes. So just because we think of me and ma, but each one has its own existence. And so that's another way that thought came to my mind recently when I was teaching. So if you have to give each one its own space, especially in Kedar, it's that when you come to Ma, that Tivra Madhyam is always there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll listen more.
That's the answer.
Yeah, actually, yeah. These rags are of course very special. In Hindustani, we normally have the higher frequency or higher note in ascent, lower in descent. Although there is exceptions to that. This question was asked by Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab once. How will you play both murs next to each other in Rag Nand? So that was a quiz given by him. Right? So the answer is to create the right chord. Maybe I can show. So his idea was to create mean from Gur to Shuddhama, and then you can hide one mur next to the other one. Let's see. That's the context. That's how he used this. So that was the answer of his quiz. But you take the mean kant from Ga, then you can do Ma, then Tivrama and then kant to Pa. So there are some tricks like that. But normally you won't find them next to each other, except from Yamula. But yeah, those are good mental exercises.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shubhangi, Nachiketa and Prasad for a very, very lovely meeting.